Mas há um homem cujos talentos proféticos assombram até mesmo os céticos mais renitentes. Ele completou apenas a 8ª série, mas revelou segredos do passado desconhecidos pelos historiadores. Previu guerras, diagnosticou e curou doenças e viu mudanças em nosso planeta que só poderiam ter sido descritas por cientistas. E tudo isso dormindo. Durante 43 anos de sua vida, Edgar Cayce teve a assombrosa capacidade de entrar em transe e dar às pessoas informações detalhadas a respeito de qualquer coisa que lhe perguntassem sobre o presente, o passado ou o futuro.
Edgar Cayce is probably the most profoundly important clairvoyant of all time.
He was clearly the most gifted psychic of the 20th century.
Ele previu a Segunda Guerra Mundial, as mortes de presidentes, o futuro da medicina e diagnosticou doenças enquanto dormia. 14.306 de suas leituras estão arquivadas e catalogadas na Associação para Pesquisa e Iluminação em Virginia Beach, no estado da Virgínia. Quando o menino Edgar tinha visões quando se sentava nos bosques lendo a Bíblia. Após seu avô afogar-se no lago da fazenda, Cayce disse vê-lo nos arredores. Tinha também a estranha capacidade de decorar livros inteiros quando dormia sobre eles.
Had he been born in different circumstances, not a little rural community, Edgar could very easily have been, sold as a circus act. He was completely surrounded by people who loved him, people who protected him.
Seu talento mais assombroso, que deu origem ao nome Profeta Adormecido, surgiu mais tarde, aos 20 e poucos anos. Os clientes faziam perguntas sobre todos os assuntos. Quem procurava petróleo perguntava sobre a localização dos poços.
Some of the most remarkable readings before 1923 are oil readings, geophysical readings. Edgar Cayce gives almost a foot-by-foot breakdown of the geophysical conditions for a particular site. And invariably he was right, he was dead on.
Pessoas brilhantes também o procuraram.
Thomas Edison received readings on the nature of electricity. Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States, who was suffering from a heart condition. We know that George Gershwin received readings. We know that Nelson Rockefeller received readings.
Cayce também foi o primeiro a prever a Segunda Guerra Mundial.
In 1935, Edgar Cayce was giving a reading to a 29-year-old freight agent, and the individual wanted to know about affairs of an international nature. Cayce predicted that there would be an alliance between the Austrians, the Germans, and the Japanese. He says in the reading, and unless there is interference from the divine, the whole world will be set on fire. In 1935, no one had any idea that any of this was about to happen.
A Liga das Nações ainda era atuante e outra guerra parecia implausível.
Edgar Cayce seems to have had a psychic sensitivity to the coming of World War II. There were certainly things in the news that were the clouds of this coming war, but he targeted the time in which it might begin to occur and even its end, and many of the dynamics that went on during those war years. He's not a Republican or a Democrat. He wasn't trying to advocate any particular political agenda, but he clearly had a moral sense about something that needed to be achieved if we were to fulfill our destiny as a nation.
As visões de Cayce sobre agitações civis, guerra ou medicina teriam se perdido se não fosse por Gladys Davis, uma jovem taquígrafa contratada a partir de 1923 para registrar tudo o que fosse dito em transe.
She was much more than a stenographer. She really completed the work. And it's because of Gladys Davis that we have the readings today.
I felt an instant attraction to this man. I just trusted him. One day during a reading, he said a string of words, so I was wondering whether I should put a dash or comma or just how to word this. And over there asleep on the couch, his eyes closed, he said, put a comma between these.
After she took the reading, she then typed it up into a copy that she would send to the person who had the reading. In the interest of confidentiality, all the names of the people having readings were removed and numbers were inserted.
Não fazia diferença para Cayce se os clientes eram pobres ou poderosos. Não cobrava pelas respostas, mas aceitava doações. Uma decisão que afetou bastante sua família.
We struggled financially, yes, all the time. My mother was frequently wondering what she was going to buy for groceries next week, because if he got 2 or 3 readings in a row and he had a little money, he'd buy a load of topsoil for the garden, or he'd buy a new fruit tree. I think my father gave these readings because he felt it helped people, and that's what he wanted to do.
O sonho de Cayce era abrir um hospital em que os pacientes pudessem receber os tratamentos que ele prescrevia em transe. Em 1925, ele se mudou para Virginia Beach e 3 anos depois abriu o hospital, que foi fechado em 1931 devido à depressão. Durante 43 anos de sua vida, Edgar Cayce deitou-se em um divã, colocou as mãos sobre o plexo solar e caiu em transe autoinduzido. Nesse estado, ele viajava pelo espaço e tempo, prevendo guerras, diagnosticando doenças e, em algumas de suas leituras mais intrigantes, reescrevendo a história. Na verdade, Cayce sugeriu que, com prática, todos poderíamos fazer o que ele fazia.
Não acredito que haja alguém sem a capacidade que tem. Bastaria dispor-se a deixar de lado o interesse pessoal para desenvolver essas capacidades.
Cayce conseguiu descrever onde obtinha informações durante o transe. Ele disse que vinham da mente subconsciente da pessoa para quem fazia a leitura, que lia os registros akáshicos, uma fonte universal de conhecimento que contém todo o passado, o presente e o futuro possível da humanidade.
Edgar Cayce said, ultimately, when you view it from the highest dimension, there is no time and no space. There is no future and no past. It all is occurring in one fascinating moment of expression, but time is an illusion that has purpose.
As leituras de Cayce também sugerem que podemos influenciar o futuro. Outro grande profeta, Nostradamus, também pensava assim.
Edgar Cayce and Nostradamus both shared the belief that the future was malleable, changeable. It's also true that if you're a prophet, you're also a propagandist. You're trying to persuade, often, the future to change.
Por que Cayce ia querer que o futuro mudasse? Que profecias desastrosas ele fez para o novo milênio?
Edgar Cayce made some extraordinary and spectacular earth change predictions. Something that would be catastrophic, probably even beyond what we could imagine.
Nostradamus, os maias, os profetas e as tradições proféticas de todo o mundo alertaram para mudanças cataclísmicas que estão por ocorrer.
The ancient Mayans had a sense that there would come a time, about in these times in which we're living now, that would include tremendous destruction. They speak about the day of the withered fruit and the great tempest, things that sound rather scary.
Os Hopis falaram da morte de árvores e de mudanças climáticas intensas que trarão o grande dia da purificação. Nostradamus falou de mortos saindo dos túmulos. E Mãe Shipton alerta.
Tempestades farão o mar rugir, tudo vai morrer e nascerá um novo mundo.
As profecias de Cayce para o novo milênio são tão terríveis quanto as de todos os profetas que o precederam.
Edgar Cayce made some extraordinary and spectacular earth change predictions. Probably the biggest one was that the rotational axis of the earth would change. And that's something that would be catastrophic, probably even beyond what we could imagine if that took place literally.
If the tilt axis of the earth shifted slightly, the entire mass of the earth would have to reconfigure itself. It would shift ocean basins, it would shift where valleys are, where mountains are.
Algumas visões de Cayce sobre o futuro são aterrorizantes.
He speaks of Japan going into the ocean, inundations for southeastern United States, perhaps in a very slow way, but a permanent kind of inundation.
Ele também disse que a costa leste não seria poupada.
partes da atual costa leste de Nova York ou a própria cidade de Nova York desaparecerão. E isso ocorrerá em outra geração. Partes do sul da Carolina e da Geórgia desaparecerão. E isso acontecerá muito antes.
He also suggests that Europe would change either geologically or climatologically in the twinkling of an eye.
Cayce actually foresaw these as part of the shifting of the poles. He stated that the Great Lakes would flow down through the Mississippi Valley system and from there flow right into the Gulf.
Cayce, que nada sabia sobre placas tectônicas, disse que sinais de dentro da Terra nos alertariam da mudança dos polos.
The most dramatic predictions that Edgar Cayce made is that there would be the onset of major earth changes that would escalate in activity from 1958 on through 1998. From that period on, these trends, they would escalate again. Then we would know that the pole shift was coming.
Haverá agitações no Ártico e na Antártida que provocarão erupções vulcânicas nas áreas tórridas. Começarão em 1958 e em 1998.
Volcanic activity events are increasing. Torrid zone activity has increased along with general world increase by something like 500% in the last 50 years.
Cayce também previu mais tempestades violentas e terremotos nesse período. Nos últimos 10 anos, os furacões no Atlântico estiveram em seu nível mais elevado. E muitos terremotos foram detectados em todo o mundo. Em 1999, pesquisadores alemães mediram mais de 200 terremotos acima do Círculo Ártico em 7 meses. Será que Cayce, Shipton, Nostradamus, os Maias e os Hopis leram o mesmo livro de profecias?
People from different cultures seem to have been able to tune into a kind of universal mind. At the same level that Nostradamus and Edgar Cayce seem to have been able to tune into also.
O mundo que conhecemos irá terminar?
Some disaster with our skies, with our crops, with our rising oceans, they all can basically agree on that. They may emphasize one aspect more than others, but they all share the fact that we are entering a period of evolutionary crisis.